All right. What's happening, guys? We're back again. We're doing another review. We just got back from Derby, Tasmania for the second round of the EWS. Man, what a race. Like, it was massive. Even talking to the guys that obviously race Enduro normally, like Ed Masters, Jack and all those boys, they said it was a big one. It was my second Enduro I've ever done. I thought I'd come out and go down to that one and give it a try out. It's definitely one of my favorite places to go ride a bike, so I thought I'd go down there and give the racing a go. I actually missed Madina, thinking it was just going to be a bit of a mud fest down there. It kind of seems like Murphy's Law. The thing you expect something to be is never what it is. But Miss Madina, it looked dry, dusting, absolutely awesome. Got huge reviews from a lot of people. Talking to most of the guys in Derby, said it was like one of the best places I've ever ridden. So everyone that does work there, Simon French, Reese, all the guys, like, you guys have put on an absolute incredible event just from hearing the feedback from everyone. So that was a bit disappointing that I missed that one, but just logistics and whatnot, kind of Derby was going to be easy for me. So went down, I went and raced Derby. The first day we got there, it started absolutely just pissing down rain. And now the good thing about Derby, because it's got so much gravel and granite in the dirt, it actually deals with rain quite well, but still riding in the pissing down rain in cold Tasmania is always a bit of a challenge. So day one out riding, got absolutely soaked, but still had a bit of fun. And then the next day we had the first day of practice on the Thursday, and it just pissed down the whole time. Like, did not stop raining the whole time. So after stage one, completely soaked, we ended up doing 50 Ks of riding and about 1,700 meters of climbing on that day, about I think like 4.5 hours in the saddle. And I can tell you that after about stage 3 I was ready to pack it up and go home. I was pretty off it, but we soldiered through like everyone else, and it felt pretty good at the end to actually get it ticked off and get it done. But the tracks were definitely challenging for different reasons. Like stage 1, I'll go through the stages. So stage 1 on race day was rock sand. Now that, just the fact that I was racing so early, like my drop in was at 9:30 in the morning. It's still quite cold at that time, and I don't know if anyone's ever pushed themselves really hard first thing in the morning, but when you get the cold air on your throat, it's like torture. Hey, like it had an uphill sprint about halfway down, and then the bottom was quite flat. So I got to the bottom of that and could taste like blood in my throat, where obviously that cold air is just going straight down there, and it burns, man. It burns so bad. So I finished that, and all the people around me were all pretty much on the ground just coughing up, and I didn't stop coughing until I got to stage 2. But that was a good way to get it started off. I kind of was just like, what have I signed up to and why am I here? So we got that one ticked off, and then went on to Dam Busters, which was honestly better than I expected. I think coming from the first one, everyone was a bit kind of like, it can't get worse than that. So it's like we already set the bar down here, and then it kind of got lifted. But Dam Busters was quite a fun way. Got in a bit of a flow with that one. Afterwards we did Trouty. Now that was awesome. That was probably one of my favorite stages of the whole day. That just felt like a mini downhill track. Good fun, big crowd, lots of loose rocks. Just a fun, cool track. That was more of a sprint, more of my style, but did that one. After that we went on to Detonate, which again, more of a technical downhill bit. The last pedal, it got me though. Like, it got me. I felt really good until the last pedal, and then by this point I actually didn't eat enough food during the day, so I definitely got about halfway and had a couple bars, and I should have been eating more, but energy level started to crash a little bit after that sprint, so it was definitely feeling it. Then we went on to Cuddles. Now Cuddles is the newest track that they just put in Derby. Honestly, probably one of the funnest tracks I've ever ridden again. Like Derby, the guys at World Trail, Reese Atkinson, Glenn Jacobs, all those guys, they just know how to build tracks. And I think just the terrain that Derby gives you, it's endless to how many different features you can make. And they've got these huge rocks that gap down to these perfectly fun corners, and everything just flows well. So Cuddles is definitely one of my favorite tracks. It was really wet and slippery in some spots. The bottom was a bit of a bog, so it was still a battle to try and get through, but managed to get through that one unscathed again. And then I think that was second last one, and then the very last one was Kamagutsa. Now Kamagutsa was the longest one of the whole day, and probably the most technical, I would say, just because some bits were just absolute bog hole, some other bits were perfect. And just at this point, like, I remember pedaling up with all these guys, and normally you kind of get to this sting track at the top after you've pedaled the road, and you pedal for another, like, I don't know, half an hour or so. I got off my bike and probably pushed about 7 times with these other guys, like, just to try and cut the track and make it a bit shorter. But it was kind of hell at that point. I had not eaten enough food. I had 4 gels on this one climb just to try and get me over the hill. We got up there. I was sitting in 32nd, and I was like, I want to jump in the top 30. So I went hard at the top, almost crashed 3 times in the first like minute. I was like, all right, just simmer back a bit. So I simmered back, ended up up coming down and going on the hot seat for a little bit, but managed to come away with 32nd, which honestly I'm really happy with. I had a good day. I pushed hard. I felt like I was giving it in all the stages. Definitely had a few bits I could have worked on, but with Enduro, it's like you're gonna have those moments. I think because I'm so used to being so precise in downhill that when you do make those mistakes, you're very critical of them. But when realistically in Enduro, it's like look forward, don't look backwards. So you just got to keep going. A little side note to take away is I feel like with Enduros, and I please leave in the comments what you guys think about this, but just the live action is not promoted enough. Like I just don't think that you get enough information out to you live. And I know it's hard to do because obviously people are everywhere, but like my thing that I reckon they should push is get someone that knows the sport well enough and knows the athletes well enough to be able to have a bit of a connection with the top guys and be feeding information just either on just like Instagram stories, posts on Instagram, I don't know, YouTube reel, like shorts, just stuff like that. Like if you got a guy on an e-bike riding around to each start before the top guys drop, getting small interviews with them and then just updating after each stage the results, I think that would give people so much more information so easily and so quickly that it would actually make the whole event feel like a more personal thing, where I think they do a good job of doing the recaps after the race. But even for myself, like I'm trying to find updates of like who's where and where's what, and it's just hard to find, and it's hard to be engaged in something that you're not seeing the information as it happens. And then after the race, when you know who won, it's not as interesting. You're not as invested in it once it's already happened. So I would suggest, if I was running it, that you'd get a guy on an e-bike running around to all the starts with just an iPhone and just interview like Richie Rude, Jack Moyer, Jesse, all the top guys. Just put a camera in their face after each stage, screenshot the results, put it up, just keep feeding that out as the day goes on. And I think that would just keep people way more glued to the sport and way more glued to that particular race. So that's just my 2 cents on where I reckon they can go with that, because it is hard to try and follow something when there's very little information, and if timing goes down and all this stuff, you're kind of just in the dark. Like I know even watching Madina, I was struggling to kind of see information, and I was really interested in trying to find it. So I think if we can get stuff like that happening, it'll be a lot easier for just like the casual fan or even like the super fan to kind of get invested into it. But it was an epic race. Richie Rude ended up taking out the win. Pretty easy to see with, obviously he's a guy with heaps of power, and a lot of these tracks did require power. Obviously you need good bike skill as well, but there's a lot of points in the tracks where you need a sprint at the start to get your momentum, and then you couldn't really pedal after. So obviously Richie's putting down those watts at the start and then use his momentum past there was going to be critical, and I think he's obviously a rider that can do that. Sladimir got second, and I got a quote from Sven Martin, reckons he F's the ground when he pedals, so he's putting in a solid effort. But yeah, another Yeti guy, so Yeti went 1-2 in the Enduro, and then Jesse Malama went to third place. And unfortunately, Jack Moyer didn't get in the box. He got fourth, but coming off his 18th at Madina, his hand's still recovering, so he said it was just a hard thing to hang on for him. But obviously coming here, Derby's not as physical on the hands, it's more on the body, and obviously he's fit and healthy enough, so he got fourth. He actually had a crash on Cuddles, which was stage 5, which kind of set him back, so he probably would have got on the box if he didn't make that mistake. It was before a crucial pedal, so it's just shitty to see. But he still got fourth, still did well, still getting back in the flow. But I know for him, he wanted to get on the podium on home soil, and I know he knows he could have done it, so definitely finding his form again and one to watch this year. Standout ride, I think, for both the 2 races for me, it was Dan Booker. Dan Booker obviously got second in Madina. I think for Dan Booker to have all that pressure, home track kind of thing, and have all those people around him, and then just to lay it down. But chatting to him at the after party, he said he was more impressed with his ride in Derby than he was at Madina. I think as Madina obviously is his home ground and he knows what to do, but then to back that up and get 8 in Derby, he said he felt happy with how he rode in Derby. So, and just said he's just happy at the moment. He's having fun. He's definitely a person, like when I see him, he kind of has this like light about him that just seems like he's just a good dude. He's just a really good dude, and I think it's cool to see someone like that starting to find their feet in this sport and kind of starting to really push. And he's now sitting second in the overall behind Richie Rude, so that's obviously something really good to build on. And going into the next block in Europe, it's going to be really cool to see where it pans out and where he goes with it. But I think he's definitely one to watch. Luke Meyer-Smith didn't have the best run in Derby. He obviously won the one in Madina, but he got sick just before the night before in Derby, and said his energy levels were super low and just was hard for him to push like he had in Madina. But again, he's a guy that's just like, he just wants it. Him and his brother, watching them, like I always compare, because I know when I've been in that thing of just really wanting it and just having that tunnel vision that you can do it, that's dangerous. And he's definitely a person that I see, he wants it probably more than anyone else there, and he's prepared to put in the work and the effort. So when you have that, it's kind of like a perfect storm. And I think if you can use that momentum and keep going forward, that yeah, you're going to have a good year. Like he said, he's not even focusing on enduro, he's focusing on downhill. So come out and win an EWS when that's not your main focus is a pretty damn impressive thing to do. So I think he's also one to watch as well. All in all, it was just awesome to be racing bikes on a world stage in Tassie. I think they've just got so much potential. Looking at a thing that Simon French posted after the race, he wants to have a World Cup there at some, like a downhill World Cup at some point. Obviously with the ESO doing the enduro and the downhill, it's probably easier now that they've got contacts with them and got the people kind of that have seen what they can deliver. So if they do go ahead with the downhill, they've definitely got the infrastructure. Infrastructure might be tricky because I got Hobart, that's not far, but they've obviously, to hold enduro, you need a fair bit of infrastructure, and they've managed that. The tracks are definitely going to be world class. It's just a few other things that I think they need to work out, but it's definitely something I think they can make happen. Oh, there we go. I'm glad I got that one out. And then the after party that we're all excited about. My good friend Richard Tebb, aka the Stoke Wizard, had a big after party at the Froth Factory, which is his house located not far from Derby. Thank you everyone that came out. It was an absolute time. We had fire twirlers, DJs, a bar, just absolutely good time. I think we're going to try and do it again whenever there is an enduro that comes to town again, and just go bigger and better. Get some freestyle ramps, get some motocross guys there, like turn it into an absolute experience. But we're definitely well on the way. It definitely turned out bigger and better than we expected, and for everyone that came, you made Richard's night, you made my night. It was an absolute ball and just a good time. Like the amount of good people that actually come to these events, and sometimes it's hard to connect with a lot of them because you are so busy running around racing. When you go and get a chance to decompress and actually be there with these people and kind of realize how good this is to do, it's pretty special. But also a side note with the racing as well, it's hard to like be out the back of an enduro because you just go non-stop. Like you finish a stage and you go straight back up, and you finish a stage and go straight back up. That's why I didn't really eat that much, because it was just so hectic to get from one to the next that by the end of the day I just kind of felt absolutely spent and done. But yeah, if you're at the back, it's a bit tricky, so you need to like work your way up. But that's like anything, when you start at something, it should be hard. You got to make it hard for yourself to try and push to get that better spot, better status, better whatever you want to call it, to try and get further. But that's the only enduro I'm going to do this year. I'm not planning on doing any more. I will be going to France and Portugal in about 10 days to do the pre-race at Lords, and then to do a test camp with my team. So getting new bike and then doing the Lords pre-race thing that kind of get out the kinks and stuff for the ISO. So that'll be interesting. I'm not sure how much media is coming out of there and how much they're showing, but I'll be going over to that in about 10 days, and then I'll be coming back at the end of April home for a month, and then be going over for the 3 World Cups, and I'll be doing Crankworks Innsbruck. So big chunk of racing and then come home. So it's kind of like back and forth to Europe for the next couple of months. Let me know what you guys thought of the coverage and stuff from Derby, what you guys want to see more of, and yeah, your overall feel of it all. Also, Paul van der Pluim is the man. That's all I need to say. He got MVP, very important player of the match for Derby, just in all aspects. He's just the man. So yeah, big love to Paul. Let him know in the comments how much you love him. Cheers guys, much love. Peace.